Emily Bush, and you're watching SteampunkChronicle.com videos. I'm with T. Morris and Pip Ballantine, and we're here today to talk a little bit about your stories and your publishing journey, which is really kind of interesting. First, why don't you tell me about the books that you've put together?
Well, The Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences, which we co-write. It's set in a alternate history world. It's got a few bells and whistles, but it's basically James Bond in a corset has been one of the descriptive words used for it. Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences are a government agency that investigate the strange, the unusual, the bizarre, and they've got offices all over the empire. So one of the main characters is a secret agent from New Zealand, and the other is a yeah, just like me.
Wow, is it hard? Is it fiction, really?
I cannot tell.
It's semi-autobiographical.
Yes.
It really is.
Well, you know, we're all writers here, so
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of hard not to put yourself in there.
Yeah, the whole Mary Sue, Gary Stu, I think is kind of a myth, because I really do believe that every character, even the really dark ones, it's all got to come from somewhere. It's all got to come from somewhere. So
there's always a little bit of yourself in it anyway.
Yeah.
But apart from the fact that Eliza is from New Zealand and so am I, that's it. That's all we have in common. And she's paired up with a stuffy archivist who really doesn't want her to be there. She gets demoted. There was some explosion. And hijinks ensue from there.
Yeah.
They go on a cold case
it's part
investigation.
The inspirations that I feel came into the series were the BBC Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, in fact, I was a huge fan of it growing up as a kid. Pip had never seen it until after we'd finished the first book, and I sat her down and we watched one of the later seasons with Diana Rigg. And when she saw it, she was like, "Oh, I see where this is coming from now." she totally gets it, and it was so I felt like there was a lot of that coming in there. Of course, my dad, he raised me on the Wild Wild West, the reruns, and of course, I really that made an impact on me. There was that influence. There was also the X-Files, the early seasons before Duchovny left and then came back. You know the pre-jump the shark seasons of the X-Files.
The good years.
The good years, I like to call them. You know, the fat-sucking vampires, the guy who made the
bile.
cocoon with bile and newspaper.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know, the quality years of the X-Files. All of that comes into play with the Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences, both the book and the podcast that we run together.
Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead and put in a plug for your podcast.
You can find everything at ministryofpeculiaroccurrences.com. And I probably said that a little too fast. Let me say that again. It's not the ministry. It's just ministryofpeculiaroccurrences.com. You go there, you can subscribe to the podcast, you can download samples of the audiobook that's done by James Langton, which is absolutely phenomenal. You can also get the free fiction. There's links to our ebooks. And you'll also keep track of what we're planning in May, which I think we might want to save to talk about later. But we're planning for something in May, and we're very excited about it. It's with Galileo Games, and we'll bring you up to speed to that later in the interview.
Yes, Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences.
Well, before we get to the branching out into other media, let's talk about the publishing journey you guys have had. You're with Ace now.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess I should take the lead on this, because it was because of me that you found Dragon Moon Press, and then that's how
Long
we started.
story. How many years do you want to go back?
Yeah, I mean, 2012 marked my decade as being a professional writer, and it didn't really dawn on me until the Janus Affair came out, and I was like, I've been doing this for a decade. And Janus Affair came out almost at the same time as my first book. It was May 21st when I got my first book. That's how big of an impact that had. So, to back it up, very similar to with Pip, I was co-writing with a friend on the internet. We started looking for publishers because we were doing this back and forth role play through email. And suddenly, I thought, we have the makings of a book here. And she thought I was nuts, but I said, no, I really think we could get this published. So we took this mammoth of a manuscript and started pitching it around, and it came down to two presses, Bane and Dragon Moon Press. The advantage was Bane was Bane Books.
Bane.
Bane is Bane. And then there's Dragon Moon Press, and they were a small press. They were independent. They had maybe 4 titles to their name, and there was a lot of leg room and leeway for us to do different marketing things. Now, because my writing partner was in Malaysia, and I was here in the United States, I said, I'll take on the brunt. And so I was doing a lot of the marketing, and I was doing a lot of the pitching. Bane passed. Dragon Moon said, we'll give you a shot. And we became the biggest title for Dragon Moon Press at the time. There was, now, I got to give credit where credit's due, another podcaster, Scott Sigler. He came on with probably the most successful single title, which was Ancestor. That was the one that topped the Amazon charts for a good solid week. And for Dragon Moon Press, that was groundbreaking. That's a big deal, yeah. But as far as the experience of Dragon Moon, it was a delightful experience because Gwen Gades, the publisher there, she gave us plenty of leeway to do all kinds of marketing ideas, places to pitch the book, places to promote the book. She was like, oh, you want to do this thing called a podcast? Yeah, sure, why not? And that completely changed the field of publishing, because Moravi, the Dragon Moon Press book, was the first book to ever be podcast from beginning to end. Now, back up a few years, and I get an email from somebody in New Zealand. Yep.
So yeah, basically I'd sold my...
So let me just take a leap here. You met your partner on the internet.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's the best place to find partners these days, I tell you.
Yeah, but but we knew each other for ages before any of that
Turns out,
happened.
we were on an email book group together.
Yeah, we were on a listserv thing together.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that sounds so retro.
I know. What's that, Grandma? So I had a book coming out called Chasing the Bard, which was sort of a fey Shakespeare story that was set in Tudor England. And I was like, oh, this guy T. Morris, he's got a book that's set in Tudor England as well. So we started corresponding, and he was like, get into podcasting. You need to be podcasting. So I had a previous book that, the arm twisting. And so I started podcasting as well. And that was my Weaver's Web, which was my book that I'd had e-published. Yes, there was e-publishing back in 2002. You could buy a coffee with the proceeds. I'm not bitter.
And neither was the coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, that's how we started podcasting and chit-chatting. And we ended up talking about wanting to do a project together. And there was some convention we were at. We were like, he was telling me the story about a government...
It was Dragon Con. It was Dragon Con. It was 2008 when we were
starting.
Yeah.
And we were... so he was talking about this ministry book that he was setting in the present day, and I was thinking at the time, let's do a podcast for pay, because I wanted to try it out, and I didn't want to write an entire novel and not have it work. So I was like, I need somebody to come along and help me with this. T?
Yeah. And so we were so the present day ministry story suddenly became steampunk, which I knew it had that potential to be, but I wasn't sure if I could make that work or not. And so we said, okay, well, let's take this idea. Instead of setting it present day, let's set it in the past. Let's not work with the characters that you wanted to set into this, but let's go on ahead and let's create some new characters. So one night, spitballing over Skype, as you do, we came up with the characters of Wellington Books and Eliza Braun. And we started giggling about it. We thought, oh yeah, we'll call it Books and Brawn. That's awesome. You get it? See what we did there?
He's a librarian.
And that way, it'll be the spin-off of the book that I'm eventually going to write. Awesome! Well then, Pip puts on her blog that she's starting up a steampunk project. Her agent says, how far are you into the steampunk project? I'm ready to pitch it. We were like, what? Well, I'm writing up a T. Fine, we'll sign him up. And that's how I got my agent.
Wow.
And then everything was a blur after that. It was a crazy roller coaster ride in getting from there to Harper Voyager, and it was just but I do remember one thing I did say in the month of May, about a week before everything really just kicked into overdrive. I kind of had a little mini meltdown, and I said this idea is never going to sell. It's a good idea. I believe in it, but it's just not going to sell. And Pip said to me, T, Lori sold Geist in May. I think I got a good feeling about May. And I said, nah, you're wrong. Well, on camera, I'm going to say this, honey, you were right. Because boom, I was at work constantly checking my phone every 15 minutes because it became... They just made a deal. They just made an offer. It was literally a bidding war, which I know only happens like once in a blue moon, but here it was, my first big step into publishing, And I was in the middle of a bidding war, and I'm like, this is awesome.
And I was like, yes.
And
I need a drink, you know?
and terrifying.
It was terrifying. And then when we signed it, we were like, well, what are we going to do? And that was when Pip and I came up with what I think was probably the smartest thing we've ever done for the series, which was Tales from the Archives.
Mm-hmm.
That's our companion podcast. And the stuff that people wrote in this world that we just gave them the bare bones. We said, here's the world that we've got. You know,
Write us some stuff about
write us
ages.
some stuff. We got steampunk set in Africa. We got steampunk set in South America. India. I mean,
New Zealand, naturally.
New Zealand. And I just sat back and thought, this is amazing. And we really tapped into something.
Mm-hmm.
And
won an Parsec Award.
we won
2 Parsec Awards.
that was a big deal for us. We actually shut out the short story, one of the short story categories. Every entry was from the Ministry of Peculiar
In fact,
Occurrences.
we were in the same category together. He
Yeah.
wrote a story and I wrote a story. I won.
She won.
Oh. And now I think it's important to mention that you two are married.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what's hers is mine.
Yes,
So
that's-
we won.
Well,
We
no,
actually won.
She won, but by law you own half of it.
There you go.
So
my half the
That's all
parts.
right. I'll take some of your
now
awards.
when did that's an interesting part of that is, so when did that merger happen?
Again, I think it has to come back to me. I was in a very dark place. I'm just going to leave it at that. I was
Because we're writers and we go there. Right?
Yeah.
yeah, and it was a very dark place.
Life.
And I'm just gonna put it out there. Pip stepped up, and she's not only helped me out sort some things mentally, but she became a very strong role model for my little girl, now our little girl, which we call on the internet, we call her by her nickname Sonic Boom. And the boom, we just talked to her today, and it's like, man, going to cons without the boom it just sucks.
Yeah, but we asked her and she was like,
no.
It's
Unless
okay.
there's a kids programming track,
Yeah.
she's not interested.
And how old is Sonic Boom?
Sonic Boom is a whopping 8 going on 20.
I have one of those.
Yeah. but she's
already into
she's
the
getting a
steampunk.
taste in the steampunk. I mean, there's a great shot of her on the web. You can find it at Lord Montague Fromage's page. There's a shot of her with Savin, Monty, and her, and she's all steampunked up, and her like, and I'm like, wow, she hasn't even met the League of Steam yet. but no, she's she really did. She got a taste of steampunk at the beginning of this year, and she's like, this is kind of fun. People are paying attention to me. I like this. But yeah, that was how our merger came about, and it was really funny when we were getting our wills done. They were talking about, well, what are you going to do with the books and things like that. And it's one of those things now where I'm beginning to think, with authors who like to travel, I would be the first one to say, make sure that your titles, your works, and your works in progress
are protected.
It is just as much, and it's something you don't think about, but
I don't know. When we were coming into the
we were thinking about
we were coming in for a very bumpy landing in Atlanta, getting here, and I was like, that series is. I'm glad I got Harbinger. My 4th book of the order is done. So at least if I die in a fiery ball here, the series will be done.
But that's an interesting, anyone who works in a partnership in something that has intellectual property, especially something that like publishing that has legs long beyond the life of the writer, that's something you have to consider. My partner and I were not married. We're business partners, but we had to consider our wills and actually make a change, because when I started writing, it was on my own, and so my will says, where those royalties go, which now does not apply anymore. And it's one of those things you have to update.
it's a little detail that you don't really
Ever think about. Yeah.
But with what happened to me in 2010, it put a lot of things in perspective. So I feel very fortunate not just to have Pip as a writing partner, but as a life partner as well. Don't
You're
don't
sweet
give,
on camera.
don't give me that.
I've read your Facebook.
I was going to say it's not all roses and potpourri. I don't think it's that.
We do still argue about who to kill in the book.
Scoop out the litter box. Come on. Scoop out the litter box. It's your turn.
It's all glamour being a writer.
I got another level to clear on Skylanders. Come on. Scoop the litter box.
Well, let's talk about what you have coming up next. Something coming up. outside of the realm of
That's you.
paper
I
books?
want you to bring
Well, we've gone into partnership with Galileo Games to produce an RPG based on the Ministry. It's going to be a Fate core system. We're working with J.R. Blackwell and PJ Schneider, who are PJ's doing the setting, and JR is doing the game mechanics. We're going to be doing a Kickstarter in May. May 15th was when we were sort of talking about.
And this is a joint Kickstarter because at the time when we were jumping from Harper Voyager to Ace Books, there was a possibility there was going to be a gap between the two books, and we didn't want to lose the momentum. So we reached out to a few author friends, and we said, would you be interested in doing this, knowing your schedules, would you be able to do this project?
Yeah, because PJ, she's got her own thing going on.
Yes.
Right, and so we have authors lined up, including Leanna Renee Hebler,
Heber.
Tracy
it's
Hickman.
tough with that one.
I know. Tracy Hickman. We have Adam Christopher.
New Zealand author.
New Zealand author.
He writes retro sci-fi.
I love that you keep it real. Keep going back to your real.
Yeah, that's right. I got a blurb from Request, and I don't get much reading time, but I was like, it's a New Zealander. Yeah.
So that anthology is going to be called Ministry Protocol. Lost Case Files from the Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences, or Thrilling Case Files from the Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences. And then
Title may evolve.
And then the game itself is called the Ministry Initiative. And originally it was going to be 2 Kickstarters. Well, we got together with Galileo Games and said, why don't we just do one massive Kickstarter?
Yeah.
And we've got we've even got one of those far-reaching goals.
Hey, what if we get $1 million?
If we do this, if we get this pledge, here's what you get. And just coming up with some of the prizes to give people, we were just like, this is fun. And
we went up to Philadelphia and sat down with Galileo Games and JR and PJ, and it was great fun spitballing about what we were going to do.
Back and forth, and it was a real rock star creative kind of moment.
And when does that begin?
That begins mid-May, and it will go to the beginning of the first weekend of July. And the way we close off the Kickstarter is we're gonna just do almost like I can't remember, we might do a live stream kind of.
Yeah, we're all getting together.
We're all getting together, and we're all gonna get down.
We may drink something.
We're gonna have absinthe, and
I don't know
just celebrate the end of this Kickstarter.
We might end up sliding under the table if it goes really well.
If it goes really well, yeah. The more you pledge, the more we drink. So that might be
we'll have to put that on the list.
I do believe that's where public broadcasting went wrong. we need to turn it into a drinking game.
Yeah, well, what was that Christmas show that we watched? Judy Garland? No.
Yes, it was the Judy Garland. It was
the Judy Garland Christmas show.
Somewhere, it's so nice to have everybody here for Christmas celebrations. Oh, look, there's Fred Astaire coming down the stairs. Don't get up, Judy. Don't get up. I'll come to you.
We could do something like that.
Oh, we could.
Steampunk version of that.
Oh my God.
We need to do that.
An absinthe kind of Christmas. There you go.
So yes, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
You've been watching SteampunkChronicle.com videos with T. Morris and Pip Ballantine. I'm Emily Bush. Thanks for joining us today.